Welcome back to the deep dive. It is Monday, February 16th, 2026. And look, if you have been trying to parse the headlines over the last 10 days, you probably feel like you are watching a movie where the writers decided to change the genre in the third act.
Oh, absolutely.
We are looking at a geopolitical landscape that has shifted so drastically just in the last 6 months that the mental maps we drew in 2024 or even, early 2025,
Or do I?
you can pretty much throw them in the shredder.
It is not just a map change. It is a physics change. The gravity of the global order has shifted, and a lot of people are still trying to walk upright in a room that is tilted 45 degrees.
Exactly. And the catalyst for today's deep dive is a document that, honestly, if you showed it to me 2 years ago, I would have called it a CIA forgery or a fever dream.
Or both.
Or both, yeah. We are talking about the Dmitriev package. It leaked to Bloomberg on February 6th. The Kremlin spokesman, Dmitry Peskov, confirmed the existence of the working group just a few days ago. And it has essentially set the diplomatic world on fire.
It is the smoking gun. Historians are going to look at this document as the moment the axis of upheaval, what we call CRI-NK, China, Russia, Iran, North Korea, officially cracked. But let's be clear right off the bat, this isn't a peace treaty.
No.
This is an invoice.
Right. So here is the mission for today. We have this leaked internal memo from Kirill Dmitriev. He is the head of the Russian Direct Investment Fund, a massive figure in Moscow. And he is proposing a wholesale economic realignment between Russia and the Trump administration.
A desperate one.
We are going to walk through the 7 specific points of this package because they are wild. But we also have to answer the big question. Why? Why is Russia, after spending 5 years screaming about a multipolar world and hugging China, suddenly begging to get back into the U.S. economic orbit?
Because they are suffocating. It is that simple. I mean, we need to frame this not as diplomacy, but as mechanics.
Yeah.
You have Russia, what we have been calling the bear claw in our previous discussions, currently suffocating under energy asphyxiation. They're trying to cut a deal with the logistical OS, that is the United States, before the Dragon Bar China eats them alive. This leak isn't a strategy. It's a distress signal.
A distress signal valued at $12 trillion if you believe the Ukrainian intelligence reports and President Zelensky's statement from the 6th.
Right, which you shouldn't.
Well, okay, let's play devil's advocate for a second. Is this actually a distress signal, or is this Putin trying to play 4D chess? Because on the surface, offering a $12 trillion investment deal to a transactional U.S. president sounds like a position of leverage. It sounds like, hey, we have money, let's do business. Why do you read this as desperation?
Because of the fine print, and because of who is sending it. Kirill Dmitriev isn't a general. He isn't an ideologue like Dugin who talks about Eurasian destiny. He is the money man.
He's their Wall Street guy.
He is the guy who used to bridge the gap between the Kremlin and Goldman Sachs before the war. When you send the accountant to negotiate instead of the foreign minister, it means the bank account is empty.
That's a great point.
And that $12 trillion number, that isn't cash in a suitcase. That is vaporware.
Vaporware, that's a tech term for software that never gets released.
Exactly. It is a projection. It is the potential value of contracts over the next 20 to 30 years if, and it is a massive if, the U.S. agrees to open the gates. It is a carrot.
It's a hypothetical future value.
He is saying, look, we can make American companies rich again, but only if you let us breathe. It is an admission that the Russian economy, as it stands in 2026, cannot generate that value on its own. They need the U.S. engine to restart their own car.
Okay, let's get into the anatomy of this thing. Because when you actually read the 7 points, it is less of a treaty and more of a shopping list for things Russia broke and can't fix. Let's start with point 1, aviation. The document explicitly asks for contracts to modernize Russia's fleet with U.S. participation.
This is the most visible, visceral failure of the Russian state. I mean, just go back to 2022. They stole hundreds of leased Boeings and Airbuses.
They just nationalized them, basically.
They effectively hijacked them. They said, we don't need the West. We will build the Sukhoi Superjet. We will build the MC-21. They had this whole narrative of autarky. Fast forward to today, February 2026. What is flying?
From the reports I am seeing, not much. And what is flying sounds terrifying.
It is terrifying. Aeroflot is cannibalizing newer planes to keep older ones in the air. We have confirmed reports that the domestic PD-14 engines for the MC-21 failed to meet safety standards in high-stress tests. They are having hull incidents weekly.
So they can't even make the parts to keep their existing planes in the air, let alone build new ones.
They can't. The supply chain for counterfeit parts from Iran and China is a disaster. Things don't fit. The specs are wrong. So point one is the Kremlin admitting we cannot build safe airplanes without Western avionics and engines. They want Boeing back.
Wow.
They're willing to humiliate their own domestic industry just to get planes that stay in the sky because the Russian elite are terrified to fly on their own planes.
It's a matter of personal safety for the people in charge.
It always is.
Which brings us to point two, and this feels like the real moneymaker for the U.S. side: oil and LNG. They are proposing joint ventures in offshore and difficult reserves, and there is this specific phrase in the leak about allowing U.S. companies to recover past losses. That sounds like reparations in reverse.
It's a fire sale. Look, Russia has oil. We know that.
Yeah.
But the easy oil, the stuff you could just stick a straw in the ground in Western Siberia and suck up, is depleting.
Right. That's been the story for years.
The future of Russian energy is in the Arctic and deep offshore shelves. That requires high-tech drilling equipment, seismic mapping tech, and horizontal drilling software. Who has that?
Halliburton, Schlumberger, Baker Hughes, the Americans.
Right. And they all left or scaled back significantly. When the Western tech left, Russian efficiency plummeted. They are pumping, but the cost per barrel to extract is skyrocketing.
So even if the price of oil is high, their profit margin is shrinking.
Or gone. By offering joint ventures and recovery of past losses, they're basically saying to Exxon and Chevron, we know we stole your assets 3 years ago. We are sorry. Please come back. We will give you the best cuts of the steak just to get the grill working again.
It connects to the Iron Trinity concept we're going to discuss later, specifically the price of oil. If their cost to extract is going up and the global price is dropping,
the margin is gone, then they are bankrupt.
Okay.
Exactly. They are selling $1 for 90 cents right now.
Let's move to point three. Consumer markets. Preferential conditions for U.S. companies. This is the please bring back the iPhone clause.
Checkles. It is the sedation clause. You can run a war economy for a while on patriotism, but by year 4, people want a working toaster. They want a laptop that doesn't run on pirated, buggy software. They want Nikes that aren't Chinese knockoffs.
The social contract starts to fray.
The Kremlin knows that the social contract is fraying. They need to flood the market with high-quality Western goods to keep the middle class in Moscow and St. Petersburg from rioting. It is bread and circuses, but they ran out of bread.
And the Chinese goods filling the gap just aren't the same quality.
Not even close. It's a constant reminder of what they've lost.
Yeah.
Every time your cheap Chinese smartphone glitches, you're reminded that you used to have an iPhone.
Point 4 is nuclear and AI cooperation. I feel like we can gloss over that because the U.S. is never going to give them high-end AI chips.
Agreed. That is a throwaway. It is wishful thinking. Dmitriev threw that in there to make it look forward-looking. But Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner aren't going to hand over the keys to the AI kingdom. It's padding.
But point 5, this is one that made me stop reading and actually laugh out loud. The dollar system.
The kicker. The whole ballgame.
I want to be clear for the listener. For years, we have heard about BRICS. We have heard about de-dollarization. We heard about the petro-yuan. And here, in black and white, point 5 proposes a working group to return Russia to the dollar settlement system, specifically for energy transactions.
It is the blue screen of death for the anti-dollar movement. It's the moment the whole ideological project just crashes. Kernel panic.
Why? I mean, really dig into this. If they have the yuan and they have this massive trade relationship with China, why go back to the currency of the enemy?
Because they learned the hard lesson of currency economics. Liquidity versus control. The U.S. dollar is a global utility. It works. You can spend it anywhere. It clears instantly. It's a fungible, liquid asset.
It's the operating system of global finance.
Exactly. The yuan is a political tool. Dealing in yuan comes with strings attached. Beijing controls the exchange rate. Beijing controls the capital flight. And most importantly, Beijing demands discounts. They know Russia is a captive seller.
So when Russia sells oil in yuan,
they can only spend that yuan in China. They are trapped in the company store. They realize that trading the dollar for the yuan wasn't liberation. It was just changing prison guards.
And the Chinese guard is much stricter.
Much stricter. And it's right next door. They want the uptime of the U.S. financial system because the Chinese system is bleeding them dry via arbitrage. This is Russia saying, the revolution is over, can we please have our bank accounts back?
That is a massive admission of failure for the BRICS project. I mean, it's not just an admission, it's a death sentence for the idea of a BRICS currency.
And it effectively kills it as a rival currency bloc. If the second biggest member is begging to get back on SWIFT, the club is closed. Brazil, India, South Africa. They're all looking at this and realizing the de-dollarization dream was just that, a dream.
Okay, point 6. Critical minerals. Lithium, copper, nickel, platinum. This seems like the sweetener in the deal.
It is. It's a very clever and targeted sweetener. They read the U.S. strategic papers. They know the U.S. is obsessed with breaking reliance on China for batteries and chips.
The entire green energy transition and high-tech manufacturing base depends on it.
Right. So Russia's saying, hey, we have nickel, we have platinum. Let us be your mine so you don't have to deal with Beijing. It is a classic wedge strategy. They are trying to make themselves useful to the U.S. supply chain to insulate themselves from U.S. sanctions.
You can't sanction us. We are supplying your Ford batteries.
Precisely. It's an attempt to become too integrated to fail, or at least too integrated to sanction further.
And finally, point 7. This one feels laser targeted at the Oval Office. Fossil fuels versus green agenda. They want to align with the U.S. to promote hydrocarbons and fight the climate ideology of Europe and China.
It is political framing tailored for an audience of one, Donald Trump.
It's speaking his language directly.
It's pure poetry for that administration. They are trying to position the U.S. and Russia as the realist hydrocarbon powers against the woke green Europe and the strategic green China. It plays into the drill, baby, drill ethos.
But it's also an admission of their own weakness, isn't it?
Oh, 100%. Let's be real. It also highlights that Russia has no future outside of digging stuff out of the ground. They are doubling down on the 20th century economy because they failed to enter the 21st. They can't compete in tech. They can't compete in services. So they're saying, let's make the world run on the one thing we still have.
So that is the package. It is a desperate shopping list wrapped in a $12 trillion marketing pitch. But we have to look at the context. Why does this leak now, in February 2026? We have data from CSIS, the Center for Strategic and International Studies, that paints a pretty grim picture of the Russian war effort.
It is not just grim. It is terminal. Look at the numbers. You have to internalize these figures. CSIS estimates 1.2 million casualties since 2022.
1.2 million.
That is a demographic crater. That is a generation of labor, fathers, and engineers gone. Territorial gains. They are measuring success in meters 15 to 70 meters a day in the Donbass.
That is WWI styling grinding. It's Verdun.
It is worse because the economic cost is higher. And economically, 0.6% growth projected for 2025. And that is mostly inflation masking as growth. It's the government spending money on tanks, which counts for GDP but doesn't improve anyone's life.
And 0 Russian companies in the top 100 global tech firms.
Zero. This is what I call administrative compression. The system is failing under its own weight. Putin can give speeches about resilience, but the dashboard is flashing red. They have 15,000 North Korean troops holding the line because they ran out of convicts to recruit.
They're using foreign mercenaries on a massive scale.
They are selling oil at a massive discount. The U.S. strategy, what we call the Iron Trinity, is crushing them. They need an out before the system crashes completely. This package is them hitting the eject button.
Let's pivot to that. You keep using this term, the Iron Trinity. This is the framework for how the U.S. is operating in 2026. It is not the old alliance of democracies rhetoric. It feels colder, more mechanical.
It is. The Biden era was about alliances and shared values. The Trump-Vance era in 2026 is about operating systems. It's about efficiency, uptime, and control. The Iron Trinity has 3 pillars: the Golden Dome, the Bulldozer, and energy asphyxiation.
Okay, break them down. Start with the Golden Dome.
The Golden Dome is total homeland invulnerability. It's not just the missile defense, though the new orbital layers via Starlink are part of it. It is economic. It is the tariff wall, 25 to 50% baseline on almost everything.
A Fortress America approach.
A fortress, but an efficient one. It's also the DOGE administrative audits that gutted the regulatory bloat. The idea is, the U.S. economy is a fortress. It is safe, it is efficient, and it is expensive to enter.
It filters out the noise.
It filters out the UN virus. It says to the world, if you want access to the American consumer, the only consumer that matters, you play by our rules, you use our currency, you pass our security audit. It turns the U.S. market into a VIP club with a very strict bouncer. It removes the cost of fear from the American psyche.
Which allows the U.S. to be aggressive abroad because they aren't worried about the blowback at home. There's a sense of insulation.
Exactly. That leads to pillar 2, the Bulldozer.
This sounds aggressive.
It is direct infrastructure conquest. We saw this play out in Venezuela just last month, January 2026. The U.S. didn't invade to nation build. They didn't go in to teach them democracy. They went in, cleared the obstruction of Maduro, and installed a management layer to get the oil flowing to U.S. refineries.
It was a corporate takeover executed by the military.
It was a force format. If a country is hostile or inefficient, The bulldozer comes in. No gray zones. You're either compatible with the OS or you were deleted.
Wow.
We saw it with the Greenland framework, too, at Davos this year. The U.S. and NATO locked down Greenland in January. Why? Not to buy it, but to secure route access. Bases, mineral rights, control of the Arctic Road. They denied China the Polar Silk Road before it could even open. They just took control of the nodes.
And the third pillar, which I think is hurting Russia the most right now, energy asphyxiation.
The $50 oil peg. This is the sedation weapon.
Explain how the U.S. controls that price. Because oil is a global market. It feels impossible for one country to just dictate the price per barrel.
Volume. It is basic supply and demand, weaponized. The U.S. unleashed domestic shale production. No caps, no environmental delays. We're talking record output from the Permian Basin. Then, by bringing Venezuela back online under U.S. supervision, they flooded the heavy crude market.
So there is just too much oil for the demand.
Exactly. They pinned the price between $50 and $60. It's high enough that U.S. producers make a profit, but low enough to bankrupt their rivals.
Now, do the math for Russia.
We did.
Russia's budget assumes oil at, what, $70, $80?
To balance their war budget and social spending, according to the Kyiv School of Economics, they need $100 plus $100 a barrel.
So at 50?
At 60, they're straining. At 50, they are burning through their national wealth fund at an unsustainable rate. At 40, the state collapses. The U.S. has turned energy from a commodity into a leash. It is draining the blood from the axis of upheaval without firing a single shot.
This is the context for the Dmitriev package. Russia isn't changing its mind. It is running out of money. It's a balance sheet decision.
Correct. And it is not just Russia. This brings us to the fracture of CRI-NK, China, Russia, Iran, North Korea. We've been calling it an alliance for years. But looking at the data, it looks more like a group of people stabbing each other in the back on a sinking ship.
So the axis of upheaval is more of a temporary transactional arrangement?
It was an alliance of convenience against a common enemy. But now the economic pressure is so intense, it's every man for himself.
Let's look at the China-Russia piece, the dragon bar, as you call it. The trade data is fascinating. We saw it spike in 22 and 23 as Russia rerouted everything east. But in 2025, it slumped.
It hit a wall. And the reason it hit a wall is crucial. We are seeing reports of dark factories. This is crucial to understand why Russia is panicking.
Dark factories? What are those?
China isn't helping Russia rebuild its industry. China is building factories inside Russia that are fully automated, Chinese-owned, and Chinese-operated. The lights are off because there are no people inside, just robots.
So no Russian jobs?
No Russian jobs. No technology transfer. They extract the resources, process them on-site with Chinese robots, and ship the value back to Beijing. Russia is just the dirt they're digging in. Russia is becoming a resource colony.
That's a brutal assessment.
It's the reality. And the Dmitry package is the realization of that nightmare.
They're being colonized by their ally.
Yes. Putin looked at the map and realized the Americans are tough, they're arrogant, and they want to be the boss. But the Chinese want to own us. He prefers the distant U.S. logistical OS to the neighboring Chinese vassalage.
What about North Korea? We have 15,000 troops confirmed in Russia. That sounds like a strong alliance on the surface.
It sounds like desperation. Think about it. Russia, a nuclear superpower, a member of the P5, is begging the Hermit Kingdom for soldiers, for artillery shells from the 1960s.
It's a huge loss of face.
It's more than that. It's a strategic bankruptcy. And what is Kim Jong-un getting in return? We have reports of missile tech and submarine technology transfers.
That is dangerous stuff. That destabilizes the entire Pacific.
It is terrifying. You don't give a rogue state nuclear submarine technology unless you are absolutely out of options. It is a fire sale of strategic assets. It makes the Pacific much more dangerous, which ironically pushes South Korea and Japan even closer to the U.S. Golden Dome. It strengthens the U.S. position in Asia.
A complete backfire for Russia's long-term goals.
Okay.
And Iran.
Iran is the biggest loser of the energy asphyxiation. Their oil revenue is down 70%. 70.
How does a state even function with that kind of revenue loss?
Badly. They can't fund Hezbollah, they can't fund the Houthis, and they can't fund their own police state effectively. The service-level agreement between Russia and Iran is failing. Russia makes its own drones now. They don't need Tehran as much.
So the utility Iran provided is diminishing for Russia.
Exactly. Iran is facing what we call a binary SLA moment. Comply with the U.S. or go dark. Their entire business model is collapsing.
So the fracture is real. China is predatory, North Korea is extracting dangerous tech, and Iran is broke.
And Russia's the guy in the middle trying to sell his watch to the Americans to pay off the loan sharks.
There's one more layer to this iron trinity we have to touch on. We talked about the physical logistics, Greenland, oil, but there is a digital layer, the financial ledger enforcement, or FLE, and crypto.
This is the plot twist. This is where the script really flips. This is the genius of the new approach.
For the last 5 years, the narrative was, crypto is the Wild West. It is how you evade sanctions. It is how Russia moves money. But you're saying the U.S. has flipped that.
Completely. The Chainalysis reports are clear. Crypto isn't the Wild West. It is the ultimate surveillance state. The blockchain is a permanent, immutable record of every transaction, and the U.S. intelligence community has figured out how to map it.
So all that talk of anonymity
Was a marketing gimmick for the early phase. Now, the state has the tools to de-anonymize most of it. So when the U.S. announced the strategic Bitcoin reserve of 1 million BTC,
right, which was a huge market-moving event.
it wasn't just an investment. It was a signal. It was the U.S. seizing the architecture. We own the biggest stake. We set the rules. It's a crypto dollar stabilization tool.
The quote in our notes was, "They sold you keys to a cell and called it freedom."
That is the reality. If a Russian drone developer tries to buy parts using USDT, or a cartel tries to launder money, the Golden Dome sees it. The transaction is flagged. The wallet is frozen.
How can they just freeze it?
Because the on-ramps and off-ramps, the exchanges where you turn crypto into real money, are all compliant. They have to be. So the U.S. says to Coinbase, freeze this address, and it's done.
So privacy in crypto
Is now a latency trade-off. If you want speed and access to the global economy, you are audited. If you want total privacy, you can use something like Monero, but you're in the wild. And the wild, you can't buy anything that matters.
You can't buy Boeing parts with Monero.
Exactly. You can buy drugs, maybe, but you can't build an economy. You can't run a state on it.
So bringing this all back to the listener, this all sounds very high-level trillion-dollar deals, orbital defense, oil pegs. But what does this mean for the average person or even the average business owner listening right now?
It means the world is dividing into a binary choice. The era of globalization where you can play both sides is over. You are either in the core, synced with the U.S. logistical OS, benefiting from the Golden Dome, the low energy costs, the security, or you are in the wild.
High latency,
Game over.
disconnected.
High risk, low trust, high cost. And we are seeing companies make this choice in real time.
Look at Germany, VW, BMW. They're reshoring production to the U.S. and Mexico. Why? To survive the tariff wall and to get access to that $50 oil. The European Green Deal is effectively dead. It is being replaced by pragmatic security.
They're syncing with the USOS because the alternative is deindustrialization. They realize they couldn't power their factories on Russian gas or on windmills alone. They need the stability of the core.
So the verdict on the Dmitriev package. Is the Trump administration going to take the deal? Are we going to see a grand bargain?
They will strip mine it. They will not accept it as a partnership between equals. That's the key.
What does that look like in practice?
They will take the aviation contracts
Right.
because it's good for Boeing. They will take the critical minerals because it helps their supply chain independence from China. They might even let some consumer brands back in, but they will not give Russia the political equality it wants. They won't lift the core sanctions. They won't recognize the territorial gains in Ukraine. They will treat Russia as a defeated, power-seeking terms.
It is a surrender, not a merger.
It's a forced restart. That's the best analogy. Russia is trying to reboot its operating system to be compatible with the Golden Dome because the alternative, being formatted by the Bulldozer or eaten by the Dragon, is worse.
It is a staggering shift. We are witnessing the end of the post-WWII order and the multipolar experiment in real time.
We are moving into a world of service-level agreements. If you want the service security, trade, energy, and the wrench, you pay the subscription fee. And the subscription fee is compliance with the U.S. core. It's that simple.
I want to leave the listener with that thought. In a world of service-level agreement and logistical operating systems, are you a user with admin privileges, or are you just data waiting to be formatted?
That is the question. The Dmitriev package proves that even nuclear powers eventually have to pay the bill. The subscription always comes due.
Sync or blue screen? That is the choice.
That is the choice.
We are going to be watching the White House response to Mr. Dmitriev's shopping list very closely. It is going to be a fascinating few months. Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.
Stay synced.
See you next time.